listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, one and all. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You can always send an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight at, oh, wait a minute, there's more to that than that. And you can also listen to the rest of the 24-hour clock, 7 days a week, the very best of the X-Zone at www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Debe Branning, and she's been the director of the MVD Ghost Chasers of Mesa Bisbee Paranormal Team since 1994. The team conducts investigations of haunted, historical locations throughout Arizona. Debe has been a guest lecturer at the Ottawa University, Central Arizona College, Arizona State University, and South Mountain Community College. She has been a speaker at science fiction conventions such as Phoenix Comic-Con, CopperCon, FiestaCon, HauntedCon, and AZ Paracon. She has appeared on episodes of Streets of Fear for FearNet.com, which aired October 2009, and on an episode of Travel Channel's Ghost Stories about haunted Jerome, Arizona in July of 2010. She continues to help in the research field for various television channels. And joining us now from Arizona is Debe Branning. And Debe, welcome to the X Zone.
Oh, how are you tonight?
You know what?
Glad to be here.
I am really doing super. I'm glad you're with us, Debe. So tell me, how haunted is Arizona?
You know, being a new state, because, when you think of the United States being haunted, you think back east in Boston and New York, Atlanta. We're still kind of the Wild West out here. And, our state, is just barely 100 years old. Our settlers started coming in, the 1870s when all the other towns were booming across the country. So our ghosts are a lot of, that fast-paced energy from miners and cowboys that were out here in the Wild West. And, that's what we're always seeing here about that time period as far as our ghosts.
So the most of the ghosts that you see, are they the prospectors, the settlers, the cowboys, the Native Americans? Yeah, wow.
Exactly. It's kind of that time frame, because that's when the state was, unsettled, it was wild and woolly, and, everyone is here because it was new territory. Everyone was out to get the gold, so it was like greed and fighting, and it was kind of crazy back in those days, like you see in the old westerns. It
sounds like the Republican presidency campaigns that are going on in the states right now. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
The state itself isn't very old, but I would imagine that some of the ghosts and some of the hauntings that you and your fellow investigators have come across surpass the 100-year mark.
They do. We have, the early Native American tribes. The Hohokam tribe was one that was here for a great period of time, and they just disappeared. No one even knows, where they went. It was like they were here farming on the land, living on the land, and suddenly they moved on, and no one has really been able to trace them. I do volunteer work and restoration work at the oldest cemetery in Phoenix, and underneath our cemetery, there's a whole Hohokam village beneath it, including a Hohokam cemetery. So sometimes it gets kind of eerie out there just because of that fact, knowing that you're over a village and over a cemetery older than our cemetery.
Wow, it seems that you're not only a paranormal investigator, but you're a historian as well.
Exactly. I've always say the history and mystery goes together. And when you study the history of what was going on in the area, it's a lot of times you can solve the mysteries of who the spirits might be.
Well, let's talk more about that on the other side of this break we have to take. Exonation, my guest this hour is Debe Branning. The website is www.mvdghostchasers.com. That's www.mvdghostchasers.com. And don't forget Exonation starting March the 21st. That's Monday, March the 24th. The X Zone Radio Show will be broadcasting on the Mutual Broadcast Network from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. Another network, more great stations, more great listeners, getting the news out to the people out there about what is real in the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology. My name is Rob McConnell. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wieka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wieka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Debbie Branning is our special guest. www.mvdghostchasers.com. All right, listen. What, in your opinion, is the most haunted place in Arizona?
The haunted place in Arizona?
Yeah.
I would say it's down in the southeastern portion of the state where Tombstone, Bisbee, and Douglas, Arizona are. It's kind of border towns. And I don't know if there's a vortex there or what, but it's just, I think that's where the action was back in the day. And so the spirits still linger on that area quite a bit.
Really? What kind of spirits or what kind of activity is there?
It's just a place where basically, of course, in Tombstone you have, the White Earp saga going on. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it'll be things that refer back to OK Corral and the Birdcage Theater. In Bisbee, that is an old mining town. And underneath the town, it's all like Swiss cheese. There's crystal, granite, and all that, kind of accelerates spirit activity. In fact, I have a house down there, a part-time house, and I had a bunch of people over just 2 weeks ago, and we were standing around talking in the living room, and we looked down, and there was actually an apparition of a cat that walked through the room, and I've never had a cat in my entire life. So it came from, I don't know, whoever owned the home in the past. I live across the street from the cemetery, so who knows what comes forward from there. But there's so much energy stirred up in that town, from the underground crystals and granite. I think it just accelerates the spirits that are out and about.
Debbie, is it possible that the crystals and all the energy in that underneath the town is what drew people to that location?
There's a good possibility because, the copper mining, the gold mining, the silver mining that was all going on there was the big draw. But maybe the crystal, the underground water streams, the granite is what kept them there. And, a lot of times, people believe that, that kind of thing is just like an old videotape, and it just, replays everything over and over again. So I'm thinking, that's the case there. A lot of it's just, repeat things over and over. People see the same thing over and over. So it's been lots of stories validated many times over by other, various people.
In your opinion, Debbie, what is the most haunted hotel in Arizona?
That would be the Gadsden Hotel down in Douglas, Arizona. Again, it's in that same region. It's pretty much, Douglas is pretty much a border town. That's where kind of our team, when we formed back in 1994, it was kind of our training grounds. We used to go down there about every other weekend, stay. We'd always get the same block of rooms. And after a while, I felt like the spirits kind of knew us. And sometimes, we can be silly as well, serious on our work. And, sometimes we're more of a Scooby-Doo entourage than, gung-ho demon fighters. And so I think the spirits began to like us, and so they just kind of were coming along with us when we would, wherever we'd go in the hotel. And we had a lot of experience with things being moved around in rooms. We would actually see apparitions, we'd actually see things moving around. And I think that the spirits just, became familiar with us. And I found that too. If you go to a place often, the spirits will become familiar with you, and they'll want to interact with you a lot more. So I think the Gadsden's probably the most haunted. The most activity has been there in that hotel.
Why would the spirits hang around? Do they know they're dead?
Well, I assume they're dead, but, when I'm dead, I want to go back to places I liked. I don't, I'm not necessarily going to go out and be out to, frighten people to death or, harm them. But if I want to come back and go to my favorite hotel or my favorite restaurant, I'm going to do it when I'm a spirit because I'll be able to do those kind of things. And I think that's why they hang around. I think a lot of spirits just come back to places they liked, with places, where maybe they spent their honeymoon and it was the best vacation of their lifetime. So they want to go back there and experience that again. I think that's a lot of, what spirits have. Some of them, I think, are because, of course, they were murdered and their murder was never resolved, and that story, or it's some don't know they're dead because they were killed suddenly. But for the most part, I think they know what they're doing out there. They're just the veil seems to be getting thinner and thinner, so they're communicating with us just because, and we have the equipment now to communicate with them as well.
Have you communicated with a spirit, and if so, what was that communication like?
The most recent thing on that grounds were four of us girls had gone out on a kind of little road trip to Hollywood, and on the way back, we went through Palm Desert and stayed at the Joshua Tree Inn. And the Joshua Tree Inn was a kind of a hotel where all the bands like the Byrds, Donovan, the Stones, they would go there as kind of a getaway from the big city, and they would all jam together, play together, and a lot of things happened there, and that's where Graham Parsons OD'd back in the 80s. And we were there one night, and we didn't get Graham Parsons' room. We got the room next door. So we had been out talking around a bonfire. We came inside our room. So us girls started talking. Just think of all the famous people that have been here. So we invited Graham to come over in our room, hey, come over in our room. So we started naming all the bands, going on and on and on. And right between the two beds, we heard what sounded like a man's voice, and it was just like, la, la, la. That's all we could, we heard the man's voice. So we're all looking at each other because we all heard it right there. So we're thinking okay, Graham, let's see here. Who did we forget? so we're thinking of everybody again, and then remembered Emmylou Harris. He started singing with Emmylou Harris, and what that man had said to us was, Emmylou.
Wow.
And that was really, communication right there in the room with us. And of course, we're kicking back, and we didn't have any cameras or equipment going because we were just chatting at that point. So, but we all four of us heard it, and we'll never forget it. And then we've played back other recordings of Graham Parsons speaking, and that was the voice we heard.
Do you do a lot of EVPs on your investigations?
Yeah, that seems to be kind of the going thing now. Our team started out, because back in the day when I started out, let me see, there wasn't hardly any teams at all. Probably 4 in the whole state of Arizona. So I'm kind of the grandmother of ghost hunting teams.
Oh, now
in the
come
state.
on, grandmother.
Grandma.
No, you don't sound like a grandma.
Oh, I don't sound like one, but I am. But, back in the day, there was not much going on. So you started out, with your basic camera. You had your reel-to-reel tapes. And then we went full spectrum where we had the whole computer setup and monitoring system. But now we've kind of gone back to basics again. We carry a recorder, maybe an EMF meter, and our cameras. And we're getting more stuff again. And so, yeah, we like when we get the EVPs, and we sit and talk to the ghosts. We'll make it more homey with them instead of like having all this equipment up and nothing's going on. We found that it's going back to the basics. We're getting a lot more stuff again.
Does your team do private residences as well?
We have, and it's not my favorite thing. We will do it for friends of a friend of a friend. We've, doing all the pre-interviews, and a lot of times I'll find that, is this a case where perhaps someone had just come home from the hospital, their medications have been changed, they haven't adjusted yet, and they're seeing things, hearing things, or, a case that they are, schizophrenic or something. Right. I try to counsel them over the phone. One thing I usually make them do is keep a diary for me for 3 weeks. And I figure if they'll keep a diary for 3 weeks, jotting down everything they're seeing and hearing, then they're really serious and will go out. But a lot of times they just want someone to come out, and they're having people where they set up teams. They prank them. They've set up all kinds in the house, and so it's not my favorite thing unless it is a friend of a friend of a friend.
Now, when you use,
I like the historic buildings better.
I can tell. When you go out and do your investigations and you use recorders, do you use analog or digital?
We do a little bit of both. A lot of us, we have several digital cameras that will sit around in the room, but we've done both ways, but mostly the digital.
Do you find that you're getting more with digital than you were with analog?
Sometimes. It just all depends on the place. Sometimes you get a lot of things, and then other times you get absolutely nothing. So to me, it just depends on the location. I always tell everybody because they want to go ghost hunting with me, it's kind of like going on an all-night fishing trip. Sometimes you catch a lot of fish, and sometimes you don't. Same with the ghosts.
What
They're
about
going to come when they want to come.
Do they have their own personalities?
I think so. I've never come, I will say this, I've never had encountered in the 5 years I've been doing this, I've never encountered anything evil, demonic, or anything like that. Basically, they've just all been curious souls that, are in a location, and they want to be there.
Do you think that, I've got to take a break in about a minute, but I have to ask you this now. Why do you think there are other groups that report all this demonic action, being thrown up against a wall, being shoved, being bitten, being hit?
I know. I've never ever have had that happen. I don't know. Sometimes we have discussed this, and sometimes we think that maybe some people are their own demons.
I like that.
And they just carry that with them. Yeah.
All right,
Stan. Because none of the people on my team have experienced that at all.
Really? Stand by, dear. You and I have to take our commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Exo Nation Debbie Branning is our special guest. www.mvdghostchasers.com. That's mvdghostchasers.com. And Debbie and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget, Exo Nation, starting March the 21st, we're going to be airing on the Mutual Broadcast Network from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. daily. I'll be back on the other side as we continue discussing the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology with my guest this hour, Debbie Branning. And don't forget her website, mvdghostchasers.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money in abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com. Join High Tech with Corey K. weekly here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. From the world of computers to the ever-popular computerized gadgetry that are becoming part of our everyday life and living and society. From kids and their gaming devices, teens and their smartphones, to the applications of personal and business computers. From hardware to software, from standalone units to network computers. Join high-tech guru Corey K. weekly right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network as he takes on the topics that will be of use and great value to the international audience of the X Zone Broadcast Network. High Tech with Corey K. weekends at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Exonation Debbie Branning is our special guest. www.mvdghostchasers.com, and they are in Arizona. And Debbie, what was it in your past that made you want to do what you're doing?
Well, I think that's one of those things that was going on all my life. And when I was probably 5 or 6, I had a group of imaginary friends, and now I'm thinking maybe they weren't so imaginary. Maybe I was actually seeing these children in my backyard. And as I got older, all the TV shows that were on back in the day, I lived for Saturday night and science fiction movies, especially when it was like stories about ghosts and things. And then as I got older, I think it sounds corny, but the movie Ghostbusters kind of inspired a group of coworkers to get together and start their own paranormal team, and that's basically how it started. We all worked together at the dreaded DMV, which we call MVD here in Arizona. And it was kind of like our relief to get away from the maddening crowds, and we started going on all these investigations and traveling around the state to old sites, and that's how the team grew. So
take me back to that very first investigation that you and the other girls of the motor vehicle department, Ghost Chasers, went on.
Again, it was down at the Gadsden Hotel, and we were trying to communicate with Pancho Villa, who is said to have rode his horse up the staircase in the hotel, and he also haunts the basement of the hotel because he was searching for some gold that was supposed to be stashed down in the basement. And and the elevator lady who ran the elevator, she said she had seen the ghosts in the basement. It was featured on a few different television shows, I believe, too. And he never has a head, and Pancho Villa's head was stolen at some point. And so we were doing kind of a spirit board session, talking to Pancho Villa. And we're sitting around and we're asking questions, and the board, began answering us, and we, we're asking, like, what his legitimate wife's name was, and it answered Maria. And so then one of the guys in our group, he was kind of a skeptic, and he goes, you girls are just moving this around. You guys are, my sister had one of these boards when she was a teenager, and you're just messing with me. He says, so I'm going to ask these questions in Spanish. And so he asked in Spanish what Pancho Villa's horse's name was. And the board just spelled out S-H-T. So what we thought what it meant. And we're like, oh, yeah, let's just put this up. So we checked with one of our other coworkers who's had a friend that was into the Mexican-Spanish history in San Francisco. And he says, I kind of think you might have been talking to Pancho Villa, because Pancho Villa's favorite horse was Siete, and it means 7 leagues. And so that's what that SHT, he was just using symbols to tell us the answer.
Wow.
So I think that got everybody hooked right that day.
What was it like the first time you saw your first apparition?
I am one that probably have only seen a handful all these years. I've got other people on my team that are the really lucky ones, and they see things all the time. One of the first apparitions we saw, we do a thing every year called Cemetery Crawl. I always wanted to be on The Amazing Race, but, I can't bungee jump, so I decided I'll just invent my own race. So every spring we put a race together, and it's going from cemetery to cemetery and cemetery around Arizona. We pick a different route every year, and they go to all kinds of historic places. Well, I was at one of the cemeteries waiting for the groups to arrive, and I was with two of the guys, and we're waiting and waiting. No one's coming. And finally I look up at the hill, and there's another cemetery up on this hill, and I see, 3 people kind of all dressed in white just kind of walking through the cemetery. So I told the guys, oh, that's part of the teams. They went to the wrong cemetery. Drive up in the truck and go get them. So they ran up in the truck, and I see the truck driving around and around the cemetery, and then they come back. They go, there was nobody there. And I go, but we all saw it. And we go, yeah, I know. So that was probably pretty exciting, knowing that those was a group of ghosts walking through this cemetery, probably visiting their loved ones.
What haunted countries have you visited around the world outside of the United States?
I have been to all around England, all around Scotland, and all around Ireland. And some of those ghosts in those castles, now they can be a little scary. Sometimes, we had to kind of do some salt baths and things after the evenings there, because their spirits are a little more intense. They're
Really?
a little bit older, a little bit stronger. They've been around a long time. So yeah, those countries are wonderful in Europe as far as encountering ghosts and going on the ghost tours and staying in the castles and everything.
With all the traveling that you've done around the world, as well as the historical work that you've done in Arizona, where was that one place where you had the heck scared out of you?
Recently, it was about 2 or 3 months ago, one of the girls on the team had a coworker whose girlfriend owned some little townhouses down in Rocky Point, Mexico, and she could not keep the townhouse rented out. Now, these are like not weekend touristy rentals. These are town people rentals. And she asked us to go down and see if we could cleanse the building for her. So we went down. There was 4 of us that went. And we decided, well, we were going to investigate first and clean in the morning, okay? So we were sitting around in this room. It had a tile floor, and we were just sitting there we had the recorders on and the cameras rolling, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we heard what sounded like if you had like a piano bench drug on a tile floor, how it goes like, "Argh!"
Yeah.
And nothing moved, and we all heard it, and we're like, okay, what was that? And so we're sitting there a little longer. About 45 minutes later, they had all the equipment cases on the counters in the little kitchen area, and it sounded like one of those big steel cases just crashed to the floor. And, of course, the girl that was sitting there jumped up. We turned around, nothing had fallen. And we're going, okay, this place definitely has a problem. So it was kind of creepy there just because we're in another country. We don't really, we speak the language fluently, and we have all this stuff, banging around the room. And I think they knew we were there to cleanse the building. So we did. We did a cleansing in the morning, and she's had it rented out ever since. So apparently we got rid of whatever was menacing all the potential renters.
All right, let me ask you a question since you're a grandmother, all right?
Mm-hmm.
What haunted location or locations do you have on your bucket list?
Oh, I have not made it to Gettysburg yet. That
Really?
is one of the big ones. I really, really, really want to get to Gettysburg. I've been to a lot of and you know what? I'm going to Bobby Mackey's this summer, and that's been on my bucket list for a long time. Bobby Mackey's in Kentucky.
What's the story behind that?
the-
What's the story behind Bobby Mackey's?
Bobby Mackey's is an old speakeasy, and they say there was a murder. They killed a woman and threw her in the well, and so, it's supposed to be kind of demonic there, so we're going to test that out. But, it's an old speakeasy, and it's been on, like, a lot of the paranormal shows, too, like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, and everything. But I've always wanted to just go there. It's just one of the ones on my bucket list.
All right, if you had...
Gettysburg, of course.
Yeah.
That's a big dream yet.
If you had the ability to speak to any one ghost from the past, who would you want to meet and speak with?
I think Billy the Kid. Isn't that weird? I
Yeah.
love the Old West. And Billy the Kid has intrigued me for years, especially in New Mexico is a beautiful state. And I have gone to several locations, where Billy the Kid lived, where he, towns where he caused havoc. I've been to his gravesite. He's just always been kind of interesting to me. I'd like to hear his story of, what really was going on in his mind when he was out and about, running havoc there in New Mexico.
What do you think he'd tell you?
I don't know. I just think he was having a good time. He was young and careless. He didn't, didn't matter to him what was going on, who he killed. He wanted to make a name for himself. That's what I think he would say. That he's just kind of an interesting person to me.
What keeps you and other Ghostbusters or ghost researchers, going after all these years? What are you hoping to accomplish?
I find the adventure, and like I said earlier, to me the veil between the two worlds now seems a lot thinner than it was when I first started doing this. And like I said, I think it's a lot of because of our equipment we have now. We're trying to communicate with a lot of them. We're not we don't necessarily get rid of them when we go places. A lot of times our clients will say, we got this ghost here, we need to get rid of it. We don't, and then after we're there, they're like, okay, we'll keep it, like it's a pet or something. And, because if they're not harmful to people, they can be helpful to you too. I've had quirky experiences with the ghosts, and I have, one at this house too. It's a woman who doesn't like dolls, and I have a huge doll collection. And we finally settled up one day because she didn't like this W.C. Field dolls I had, and I told her just don't look at it. So I came back in the room, and she had turned it and put his lapels up so I can't see his face, and I've left it like that way all these years, just kind of as a truce. And then she quit messing with all my dolls and knocking them down. So.
Why do you think there are some
I don't know.
people?
I just think it's the adventure of the whole paranormal world is really intriguing sometimes.
Why do you think there are some people who can see these spirits, these entities, these ghosts, these specters, and there are other people who can't?
I know. Well, we kind of think sometimes people that like I have a friend, and she has the beginnings of MS. She has one bad eye, and I think it's because she has to look at the world through the one good eye that sometimes it's like something in the brain waves create where they can actually see. I don't know, I've discovered that a lot of times when people have like this little tiny bit of a problem with their immune systems or whatever, they're ones that can see really a lot. The real healthy ones like me, we see them once in a great while.
So what is the ultimate prize for ghost hunters or ghost paranormal researchers?
To get a picture of something or get a voice recording of something, to me, that's like the ultimate prize. Or have a whole group of people and you all experience the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't just go into a room and say, well, I heard this, I did this. But if you have a whole group of people and you're all experiencing it at the same time, I mean, then you can, pretty much document what's going on. And but I think, if you get like that one voice on a recorder, or if you get that one picture of what, really is a true apparition, because there's so much with matrixing going on, and I still get the people that, are in love with the orbs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with these people? There's like, orbs are dust, we live in the desert,
Yeah.
So when you get something that's like, you can actually document as real, I think that's the ultimate prize. Or you have your whole group together and you witness something together. Because like I said, that time when we heard Graham Parsons speak, we didn't have anything rolling because we were winding down for the day. But all of us were together and we all heard the same thing.
It is interesting. There's no two ways about it.
Right.
But what do you there's so many shows on TV. And listen, TV is entertainment. How many of those shows are real, and how many of those shows are bogus?
Well, having been able to do research on some of these shows and be at some of the film sites of these shows, it is entertainment, because I'll argue with producers and writers of show, like, why can't we just do a show on, the wonderful, quirky graveyards of the world, like, this certain tombstone that lights up at night or something like that. And they go, because they want the boo factor. The people want to be scared. They don't want to hear about the nice little Casper that, walked the little girl across the street and got her safely home. They want to read about the ghost who pushed her into the traffic, because that's what people want. They want the gore. They want the, how I call it, the boo factor.
But what does that say about society?
They got to kind of, exaggerate on it a little bit,
Yeah.
to get the viewers to come back after that commercial.
So what does that say about society, that we live such boring lives that we need a boo factor? And doesn't this take away from the credibility?
No, I don't live a boring life.
You don't, but doesn't this take away the credibility of other
I talk
shows?
to people all the time, and they're like, this show is for real. That really happened like that, and I'll just kind of roll my eyes. I go, it's TV. They spent 2 days filming that 20 minutes worth of film, trying to get something.
And if they can't get it, they make it up.
Yeah, or they'll exaggerate it, or they'll find something else out of the corner of their eye and use that. They might have gone to talk about something about this subject, and that wasn't happening, so they saw a book fell off the shelf, so now they're going to talk about the haunted bookcase.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question, and we've got to take our final break, and I'd like to hear your answer when we come back.
Okay.
If a ghost usually hangs around the place where he died or she died, why do people go to graveyards looking for ghosts? There's my question. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone with our special guest this hour, Debe Branning. And if you'd like to find out more about Debe, her escapades, her globe-trotting of ghosts, visit her website at www.mvdghostchasers.com. That's www.mvdghostchasers.com. And Debe and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader.
To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Debe Branning is our special guest to this hour, X-Zone Nation, www.mvdghostchasers.com. First of all, Debbie, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a blast having you here on the show. Many wonderful...
I've been having fun, yeah.
Super. All right, so tell me, Debbie, if a ghost usually stays where the person dies, why do people go looking for ghosts in graveyards?
I've often wondered that too, but it does happen occasionally. And I think it's because when, say, your family goes to visit Aunt Martha's grave, and Aunt Martha was, their star relative, sometimes, the energy that they create in their mourning or their jubilation is so strong that maybe the spirit will, manifest because they need energy to manifest. So if the family's creating all this hoopla, or, whether it's in mourning or celebration, that's just enough to kind of stir up that energy, and maybe once in a while the spirits do appear in cemeteries. I've seen it happen, not a lot, but yeah, they do pop in there. But I think it's just because of the energy that people, their loved ones, create when they visit.
Should anybody fear ghosts?
No, they should not fear ghosts. Demons and devils are a whole other ball game. Mm-hmm. But no, I've never, like I said, I've been doing this for many years, and the ghosts that I have encountered have not ever pushed me down the stairs or scratched me or set me on fire or anything. So,
Deb, we've got about 2 minutes left. What is your advice to the members of the X-Zone Nation who may be contemplating on becoming a ghost chaser?
Well, my team, about 2 or 3 times a year, we do what we call paranormal workshops, where we invite paranormal investigators that are out and about to come, and newbies to come, and therefore they're working with all people that already know what they're doing. They learn tips on what they should be doing and not doing. A lot of them come to the workshop thinking, well, I've seen this on TV. Well, that's not how it works. Follow one of us. And they have become great investigators through the years. Now they have their own teams, or they, come along with us. So you go with a group that's experienced. Go on tours, that offer, like an investigation in a location, and, follow their instructions and don't wander off, do your own thing. Learn while you're there.
It's a work in progress, is it?
Yes, I wish they had that when I started doing these things. So that's why I offer the workshops here and there to, just sometimes they're just get-togethers with other teams, and we're all working together and learning from each other. So, it's great when you can learn from another team, too.
Isn't that true? Debbie, I want to thank you ever so much for taking time out of your day to join us here on the X-Zone, and we'd love to have you back on the show in the future to talk about more of your investigations into the paranormal in the beautiful state of Arizona.
That would be great.
Take care of yourself, Debbie. Thanks very much for joining us. X-Zone Nation.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night, Debbie. X-Zone Nation, our guest this hour has been Debbie Branning, www.mvdghostchasers.com. That's www.mvdghostchasers.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, starting Monday, March the 21st, 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. on the Mutual Broadcast Network. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.